I think for us on the regulatory side, we see a tremendous amount of opportunity there. And I think that's probably for two reasons. One, because we're true to the values of the company, the driver of which is we enable simple and responsible living. And so in order to deliver on that promise, we partner very closely with cities and make cities better places to live. Every Zipcar removes 15 personally owned vehicles from the road. And so I think that the second factor that contributes to the opportunity on the public policy side is very clear alignment with what we are trying to bring to the market and what cities want to see or what cities see as hope for the future, right? As cities are growing, they're becoming more congested. And I think any transportation policymaker, any developer, any smart planner, urban planner, is going to look and say the pace of growth is unsustainable if we are not able to change some things about the way we move people in cities.
If you start something and you're fortunate enough to get to the point where the regulatory conversation becomes real, first off, congratulations that you're there because you've gotten pretty far. And then two, make sure that you do everything you can to at least be a strong part of that, if not lead the conversation and shape the policy for yourself. No offense, but I don't think we want policymakers doing it alone, right? There needs to be engagement.
Absolutely.
And there needs to be your voice at the table so you understand what's going on and help shape the policy.
There's power in being a disruptive technology, a disruptive change, but not acting disruptively. And so we feel like government can be a really great partner that will allow us to really bring both of our goals in very clear alignment.
Thank you both for pointing that out, because I think that's one of the most significant issues, particularly facing startups in this space, and one that's often most overlooked by entrepreneurs. The focus is so much on the business model and trying to get that right, or the product right, which obviously is very important. But the regulatory issues surrounding the viability of your business is also extremely important, especially when you're trying to create a new market segment, like both of you are trying to do. So people will challenge whether or not you're a legitimate form of business. We've seen that in Uber and Airbnb's case, and you saw that in your case with the SEC saying, well, are you meeting the requirements necessary to lend money? And that's a significant, a very significant hurdle that needs to be overcome. Now, Justin, you have some policy background, and you very eloquently kind of talked about it. I think you're kind of positioning about how you would maybe approach a government. What are some of the tactics and things like that you use to work with regulators and the government? Because I think this is an important topic that most people overlook.
And I should add, I painted a relatively rosy picture of our relationships with governments, and that's all true. But 15 years ago, it necessarily didn't start that way, right? Car sharing was a really new concept that took us a lot of time to educate regulators, educate policymakers, and we still do that in many of our new markets, where understanding the differences between what is traditional car rental and what is car sharing is still a challenge in some jurisdictions for us, particularly in the way that it taxes our members, right? Most rental car taxes were intended to be visitor taxes, right? So that you would tax someone who is arriving from outside, and that funnels and fuels the tourism economy. Car sharing serves a very different demographic typically. It serves residents. And so, we still often try to educate policymakers around the clear differences here. But I think, to speak tactically, I think we do a lot of things. One, we engage, right? And so in most of the major markets where we work, we have strong relationships with transportation policymakers, with urban planners, with municipal leaders. We reach out, we seek their support, we ask for help in growing our business. And again, we're fortunate that there is very clear alignment with what we're seeking to accomplish and the challenges that a city faces. And we're very deliberate and articulate about that. So we invest a fair bit of our time within each of our markets in trying to build those relationships.
Looking forward to the future, what do you think's next, both for your companies and more broadly for the sharing economy in general? What do you think what do you think the next big kind of things are going to be within the industry?
I mean, for me, obviously, I can't talk about what's next quarter because we're in a quiet period, so I'll say that disclosure
That's my
one more
sneaky
time.
way.
But in terms of what's next, I think the future is extremely bright for transportation and for cities. So the area in which we operate, urban mobility, has never been really more exciting. And I think we have always envisioned, our founders really always envisioned a world where car sharing outnumbered car ownership, and I think we're closer to that world every day. The sea of transportation options that are really growing by the week really allow and enable more people to live without a car, live car free or live car light in a city, and so that has to be good for our business in the long term. I think as we look even further ahead, the prospect of the self-driving car is something that a lot of folks in our industry talk about, and I think not only is that would be hugely disruptive for every aspect of mobility, but shows, in our opinion, a lot of great promise for shared mobility. If your car comes to you, no longer would it have to sit idle waiting for you in your driveway. That really would help, I think, strengthen the value proposition of sharing an asset if that asset can even more conveniently arrive at your doorstep.
So roving cars, finding needs.
Someday.
Yeah, actually, I kind of have a similar answer in the sense that, I think broadly speaking, automation. A lot of what I do and our team works on is trying to automate the underwriting process. So I think using that same data, we'll get smarter. Obviously for Lending Club, and I'll preface it by saying I'm not involved in these discussions at all, but I think certainly there are adjacent areas of lending that we could go into. But yeah, I think from an overall kind of industry perspective, automation certainly. I think you'll probably see more granular sharing. So back to the lawnmower example. The idea is you realize, you pull out your phone, there's some app that you can see your neighbor's lawnmower is vacant for the next 2 hours. Go grab it and mow your lawn, and Bitcoin's
They mow the
sent to
lawn
them.
for you,
They
too?
could, yeah. That's where you generate TaskRabbit.
Right,
Yeah.
TaskRabbit.
That'd be smart. So yeah, I would imagine it's just going to keep going deeper and deeper. And then we're of course also seeing the kind of, I've talked about the next layer of the sharing economy. So in San Francisco, Lyft recently came out, and Uber with their carpool option. So it's not only the driver sharing his car, you're sharing the ride with the person you're in the car with. So it's kind of sharing squared, and that type of stuff you'll see more of. There's a small company that's trying to connect people that have cars with people that want to drive for Lyft or Uber that are then going to share that car. It can go deeper and deeper and deeper, and I think it will, as long as, it has to be done intelligently, and it has to be tech enabled, otherwise it'll be too inefficient.